Hi there. So today I'm going to be talking about speech language pathology. Speech language pathology is very near and dear to my heart because as a child I suffered from a very slight stutter. It was still there, and to this day, if I get a little anxious or nervous, it still kind of shows up, but not as bad as it used to be. I would love to work with kids who have speech impediments and help them learn how to move past those and become more confident in talking. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Just to start out, I have a little fact. 7.5 million people in the United States suffer from speech problems and have issues using their voice, which is a lot of people. That is a good amount of people in the United States. As a student, when I suffered with a stutter, I didn't realize how many other students were also suffering because the way my speech therapy worked, it was individualized. It was just me and my teacher, and we had an hour a day to work on it. And I did that from first grade to third grade. So, one of the things I wish I had known as a student with a speech impediment was that I wasn't the only one, and that um, it was okay. And a few really famous people that everyone knows about who had speech impediments was Aristotle, Sir Isaac Newton, and Charles Darwin. All three of them had a speech impediment, and they still did incredible things with their lives and made incredible accomplishments. This fact should go to show children who have speech impediments that it's okay to have them and that they're still just as smart as other students and that they can do just as much as other students. Students with speech impediments usually struggle maintaining a high level of self-esteem, and this can affect all aspects of their lives, including how they learn. I know it affected how I learned because I was afraid of people making fun of me with my stutter in reading. So my teachers would call on me and they'd be like, "Okay, Grace, read this paragraph to this paragraph," and I would freak out because I was like, oh no, they're going to make fun of me. I talk differently, I stutter, and I never wanted to do it. So students have a fear of being ridiculed and made fun of when they have speech impediments. If a student has a learning disability that prevents him from understanding the textbook, the teacher, understanding how concepts happen, it prevents them from being successful in their classes, and that's an issue. So that is why speech language pathology is so important, along with the fact that it gives children a way to communicate, and not just children, adults too who suffer from speech impediments, either from strokes or car accidents or any sort of brain injury. If you can't communicate, then people are going to walk all over you your entire life. You can't let your peers, your family, your loved ones know, hey, I'm uncomfortable, hey, I'm scared, hey, I'm happy, because you can't speak. You don't know how to relate those words and communicate to them. Speech language skills also help with social skills. When you're unable to communicate like your peers or have no basic speech, language skills are significantly delayed. And this can be fixed by video, like the students watching videos, them role playing. There are now specific apps in the Apple App Store that students can play and help them with their speech. And then social stories. That's a lot of what I did when I went through speech therapy. Speech therapy is not just about speech impediments, which I did not know up until, fairly recently. I knew there was other aspects of it as well, but I didn't realize that speech impediments were such a small part of it. The language is one of the biggest parts of it, and when I was doing my field observations for this class, that's what a lot of the things we did dealt with the language. The SLP at the school works with a lot of Hispanic students, and that's where a lot of the language issues come because they can't comprehend and they can't understand what's going on. So the SLPs can help the students understand complex sentences and vocabulary. They can comprehend written and oral information and compile thoughts for their speaking and their writing. One of the activities that they did was make a little keychain with 5 different colored beads on it, and the beads each represented something else, like categorization, what did it look like, where can you find it, what do you do with it, how do you use it, and that keychain can either stay on their desk in their pencil box, and when those students are having issues and they don't know how to grasp or how to write what they need to write, they can look at that keychain and be reminded. The benefits of speech pathology is the improvement in the ability to understand and express thoughts, ideas, and feelings, which is super important, like I said, because if you can't, you're going to be walked on your entire life and people aren't going to know how to interact with you. There's increased ability to problem solve in an independent environment. There's fluent speech, that's what I struggled with. My speech was not fluent, and one of the tools that the SLP taught me was pack your raft. Before you go on a boat trip, you got to pack your raft to make sure you have everything, and that's how it was with a sentence. Before you say something, make sure you have everything lined out, and it'll be much more fluent. So I still, to this day, I will think to myself, pack your raft, Grace, pack your raft. And it helps, it really does. Even if you don't have a speech impediment, and sometimes you don't know how to word things, pack your raft, and you think about it before. The fact that speech therapy gives such greater self-esteem as well. The self-esteem is something huge because, like I said, if they have no self-esteem, they're not going to want to learn. They're going to be so absorbed in the fact that people are listening to them talk and they don't like the way they talk and they talk differently, that they aren't going to be successful. And that's why students are in school, is to learn and to be successful. So speech language pathology, that's huge to help those students be able to learn. What happens during speech pathology? This is from my experience in speech therapy and my experience observing an SLP for this class. Speech therapy involves teaching students how to coordinate the airstream and the mouth and the mind to all produce a speech sound. They all work together, and that's what the speech pathologist does. The therapist teaches individualized strategies. That's why it was just one-on-one, because what worked for other students didn't necessarily work for me, and what works for me doesn't necessarily work for other students. So the SLP needs to find what works for each individual student and hold on to it and teach that to that one student. Once the student is successful at making a particular sound, the therapist works up and it gets more complex and the students do more with that sound. It'll go from the sound to syllables to words to phrases and then to sentences. And I got to see this firsthand when the SLP at the school I was at worked with a student, and she could not pronounce R. She pronounced it like the W sound. So first off, we worked on the sound. We would play bingo, and I would be like, okay, find the rabbit. And once she found the rabbit, she could put her little X on it for the bingo, but then she had to say rabbit 3 times. So she would say rabbit, rabbit, wabbit. So we'd be like, okay, we need to try it again. We need to do rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. So once she grasped the 3 correct ways to say it, we would move on. He goes, the rabbit ran on the road. So she would say, the rabbit ran on the road. So that's not quite there, but it's a lot better. So we would keep practicing. So eventually she got it. She would go, the rabbit ran on the road. And so we kept on making it more complex, and eventually she got it. And that's how the students learn. So to me, that's why speech therapy is so important, is because it gives students that way to learn and that way to be more confident in their speaking. It's very important. It's very it's needed for students to succeed, and that's why I want to help students.